The Mount Pleasant Police Department needs your help identifying a man who broke into 4 businesses over the weekend. An update now on exactly what happened when 2 people were killed in an I-49 head-on collision earlier this month. Breaking news right now, a 13-year-old girl is in the hospital this morning after being shot while she slept at home. They still have crews out working overnight. Even as I speak, South Carolina Highway Patrol, who says there were no fatalities in this accident, but 6 people are being sent to the hospital with injuries. Right now, they're actually working to get one person out of one of the vehicles. Consumer news you can use: Oreo offering a sweet, sweet prize for a lucky guest. Seriously, let's just kind of go through what some of this is. There's a lot of different ways, obviously, to decorate if you're trying to have a fancy game night. Just a few hours into the first day of early voting here in Louisiana, and I'm told in the first hour, more than 100 people were able to cast their votes. The closing ceremony happening right now as I speak, this final lap being run by hundreds. You know, we're going to start off with you, an actual forecaster, rather than a rodent in Pennsylvania telling us about the weather. What say
I will
ye?
take that as a compliment.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thanks. I can
You're
take all
my
this.
Puxatawny Phil Patrick. Snow telling when they're going to see snow again there in Morocco.
You're just trying, aren't you?
I did it, though, and it was good. Somebody at home's laughing right now. That's correct. South Carolina Highway Patrol troopers say it all started with a single car spinning out here on Edgefield Road, then hitting this pole right here. Once he crawled out of his car, he was in a second accident. His body then hit by a truck. Now, the driver was taken to the hospital with serious but non-life-threatening injuries. South Carolina Highway Patrol says at last check he is still recovering. Now, this is video from the scene earlier this morning. Troopers say the car hit power lines connected from the ground to the pole here on Edgefield Road in front of the El Cheapo gas station. The car became strung up onto the pole, and after making it out of the car, troopers say the driver was then hit by a truck that was headed down Edgefield Road. The truck driver then was able to get help from a nearby deputy, and it took 2 crane trucks and a tow truck to get the car down. Now, half of Edgefield Road was shut down here. Now the road is reopened. Again, troopers say at last check, the driver who did hit this pole is still in the hospital recovering serious injuries, but they do not seem to be life-threatening injuries. Jess?
Karen, power was off, right? And the accident involving the power pole, that lost power for a lot of people, right?
Right. In the first accident hitting the power pole, that caused about 130 customers to go without power, according to SCE&G. Workers were out here all morning getting the power back on, but as you can tell around us now, power is back on in this area. Jess? Turning to an update this morning, Freeport police say a drunk driver was speeding when he crashed his car and killed himself early yesterday morning. They say 36-year-old Maurice Whiting crashed just before 3 a.m. on Fairfield Avenue. An officer on scene told Fox 33 there'd been a shooting at Josh's Lounge shortly before the accident, and they believe Whiting might have been involved in the incident and sped away from the bar. He was pronounced dead at the scene. An investigation continues in East Arkansas after newborn twins were found dead in a suitcase. A hunter found the suitcase in a ditch Friday afternoon. The Cross County Sheriff's Office has not revealed the names of the victims. Now, neighbors near the area where the suitcase was found are now reacting to the horrible news. An autopsy has been ordered to determine how the children died. 7 Austin, Texas police officers are on leave after a deadly shooting. Police were called to an apartment complex to investigate a fight between 2 roommates and a potential kidnapping. When police arrived, they found a suspect seated in the backseat of a taxi cab. Police tried pulling over the cab. When the cab driver got out, the suspect jumped into the front seat and drove away. Police say after a short chase, the man crashed and pointed a gun at them. They responded by shooting and killing him. The investigation is ongoing. In Longview, a woman is indicted after officials say she bit a police officer while being arrested. Police say it happened at South Fredonia Street on December 2nd when officers found Jasmine Llewellyn inside an empty apartment. She then tried walking away from officers and ignoring their commands. When officers made contact, she attempted to punch an officer and later bit another on the leg as she was being handcuffed. Her bond is set at $41,000. Storms caused damage and injuries in Texas Monday night. 2 people were rescued from storm debris after severe weather hit a mobile home in Johnson County. The storms destroyed the mobile home, trapping them inside. They were taken to a hospital. No word on their condition. Several other homes were also damaged, including one which flipped over onto a van. Bossier City leaders do not want to take any chances when it comes to this year's flu epidemic. The City Council introduced an ordinance to use $60,000 to purchase 5 more Aeroclave machines. The machine helps fight the spread of flu on school campuses and other facilities. Council members also agreed to spend $250,000 annually for 12 years to complete an interchange into Barksdale Air Force Base. Altogether, they are spending $3 million on the interchange for Barksdale. DeSoto Parish School Superintendent Dr. Cade Brumley has applied to be superintendent of Jefferson Parish Schools. Dr. Brumley has led the DeSoto Parish school system to an A rating, making it one of the top 10 districts in the state. The Jefferson Parish School District, the largest in the state, has a C rating. The Jefferson School Board decided last month not to renew the current superintendent's contract. In today's Fox Family Report, Delaware education officials have a proposal they hope will stop bullying inside the classroom. It involves allowing students to choose gender identity, but the idea is receiving mixed reviews by lawmakers and parents. Fox's Talia Kirkland has the story.
Stop the race baiting, the things that you're doing.
For you to have something that only symbolizes one person.
Emotions high for some when asked about the Caddo Confederate Monument. But in the early 1900s, the front of the original Caddo Courthouse was empty. It was almost 40 years since the end of the Civil War, the bloodiest conflict on U.S. soil.
People were getting over the war, getting over the consequences of the war, black and white. If you read stories in books or listen to lectures from Northern historians, they're going to say the Civil War ended and then it was the Gilded Age, not in the South.
LSUS professor and historian Dr. Gary Joyner has spent much of his career studying the Civil War. He says the local monument's part of a movement that swept much of the country to preserve the memory of Confederates who died in battle.
You have to remember that the context of this is that this is 35 years after the war. Many of these veterans are still alive.
In 1896, about 25 to 30 local women joined that movement, forming Chapter 237 of the United Daughters of the Confederacy. Through public and private donation, they were able to hire famous sculptor German immigrant Frank Teich. The monument, made of granite and marble, includes the busts of 4 famous Confederate generals. It cost $10,000, about $275,000 in today's money. And Chapter 237 says the monument's less about the 4 Confederate generals and more about the soldier atop the 30-foot statue.
Think of it as an abstract pyramid and he's at the top. So he's the one that's being honored. The generals below him are there because they're recognizable, but the monument does not honor them.
Greek muse Clio also featured, writing in the book of history, highlighting the important role women played at a time when they had fewer rights.
The ladies that did it didn't have the right to vote. They didn't have the right to own land unless there was a cosigner of a father or a brother or a husband.
Archival photos show a crowd at the 1906 unveiling, celebrated by some during an era marked with inequality and violence nationwide.
We were at the period known as the Native period, which is the lowest point in Black America's after post-Reconstruction on to where we were lynched.
During that period, southern states, there was, if not state-sponsored, state-looking-the-other-way terror.
All parts of our local past helping paint the entire picture of that time. Tomorrow night on Fox 33 News at 9, we're going to hear more from the local Civil Rights Coalition about Caddo's black history in the early 1900s. When the Caddo Confederate Monument was unveiled in 1906, Louisiana's racial demographic was almost half and half, whites to blacks, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. Those numbers even more diverse in Caddo Parish.
Caddo Parish between 1900 and 1910, the percentage black population in the parish was never below 62%. It was as high as 68.7%.
Retired attorney John Ratcliffe worked several civil rights cases throughout his career. He says those numbers matter when it came to decisions by local lawmakers. Only men could vote at that time, and the census shows Louisiana's eligible voters were about 57% white, 42% black. Yet,
Number of blacks who were registered to vote never exceeded 15. People, not percent. 15 people.
In 1903, the Cattle Police Jury voted to fund 1,000 of the $10,000 price tag for the monument and allow the Daughters of the Confederacy, Chapter 237, to place it on the land in front of the courthouse.
It's very unlikely you'd have an all-white police jury. If you hadn't had an all-white police jury, it's extremely unlikely that that particular monument would have been put there, and it may have been that no monument would have been put there.
Local civil rights historian Reverend Dr. Azriel McLean says it's hard to know exactly how African Americans felt about the honoring of Confederate soldiers.
You have to understand the horse cattle was what's called bloody cattle, and a lot of blacks were actually murdered.
Post-Reconstruction was a violent time for the entire parish, but it was especially harsh for blacks. A 2015 Equal Justice Initiative study shows Caddo ranked number 2 in the South for lynching blacks between 1877 and 1950.
We were lynched, we were systematically denied the right to vote, using terror, using tests, using all sorts of poll taxes to suppress the black vote.
Now, more than a century later, the fate of the monument is uncertain. Some wanting it to stay, hopefully bolstering more conversations about the past.
Good and bad. You know, history doesn't have an axe to grind. It's history.
Others searching for modernization.
I think anybody who's died deserves to be remembered. But the monument's doing several things at one time, and part of what it's doing is celebrating something that was intrinsically and horribly unfair.
Through it all, one message continuing.
We've got to coalesce, black and white. We've got to coalesce to make this town what it can be.
The hope of unity. Now, the Caddo Commission has voted to remove the monument, but the United Daughters of the Confederacy filed a lawsuit to stop it from being moved. The motion hearing is set for December 11th at 10 a.m.
Pow, 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 pow. Just like that, and then the hollering started then. Everybody started hollering, mama, mama, oh Lord, oh Lord.
The Sound's 76-year-old James Wilson says he heard Thursday night. Sounds he says he's heard before, but never with a result like this.
This the first time somebody got killed. But the shooting, it's done been several times. Somebody got shot in the leg once, and last month somebody got shot in the stomach.
Shreveport police say it was midnight Thursday when shots rang out on the 4100 block of Martha Street in a drive-by, leaving 55-year-old Gina Foster dead. 25-year-old Cyborio Foster also shot, taken to University Health, where he is expected to live. Friends and family tell us Cyborio is Gina's grandson.
She was a good person. She leave and go to work, and she hollered at me every morning when she going up there to catch the bus to go to work.
A small piece of crime scene tape left in Wilson's front yard after losing a neighbor he says has lived here longer than he has.
I've been 27 years on this street in this house, and I tell you, it looks like it's getting worse and worse.
As family and friends gather to mourn, Wilson says he hopes this tragedy isn't a growing trend for his neighborhood.
I just like to see everything on this street be a lot better than it is.